It's 1-1. The Miami Heat have done their job. They've stolen home court en route to finish this magic run that they're on. But on the other hand, Denver, they're still chasing their first title in franchise history, but they have some road work to do to reclaim home court. At the end of the day, though, it looks like we're going to be guaranteed at least 3 more great games in this finals series. But in just a week or two, we're going to be on the road to next season, and today we're going to react to a Bleacher Report article that is one ambitious free agent target for every NBA team. Should be some fun. We're going to break down some of those moves as we go along. But of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Bakari Steve. How you doing? How you feeling?
I feel great. The finals has taken a turn I think nobody was expecting. Miami was able to steal one at home in Denver, so we're in for an exciting series.
This is your early reminder to support us down below as we're on the road to 300 subs on the channel. I believe we're 40 or so away, which is absolutely insane here. We never thought we would get to this point, right? And now we're just fingertips away from getting to another milestone, and we can't get there without you. So drop a like, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. But without further ado, this is the Anomaly Podcast. Let's get into it. We're going to start here with the Mavericks' Big Three. There have been some crazy rumors going around. It is reported that Kyrie has pushed the Dallas front office to trade for LeBron James at the trade deadline last season before the Lakers turned their season around. He was trying to build a Big Three of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and LeBron James. If they traded for LeBron, they quite literally would have had nothing else on that team. But we also know that Draymond Green is up for free agency this offseason. He loves Kyrie. He loves his glorious king, LeBron James. You can tell he wants to play there with LeBron. It also fits because if they have this Big Three, he brings the defense that those 3 guys lack. He could also sign in Dallas this offseason. Some crazy rumors going around. It would be 3 ball-dominant players that don't play much individual defense, right? They're more so team defenders. How do you view this trio? Let's take Draymond out the equation because, to be honest, I don't see him leaving Golden State.
Right.
But how do you view this trio if you had a trio of Luka, LeBron, and Kyrie going into next season? And on paper, would it be better than a KD, Harden, and Kyrie?
I don't think it'll be better than a KD, Harden, or Kyrie on paper. And looking at this trio, it's 3 great individual players, but like you said, they're ball dominant players. I think only Kyrie has really proven that he can run actions off ball. Like you can get Kyrie off screens, off whatever you want to say, off clip screens, off whatever elevator screens, off ball screens. Kyrie can do it. It's just his, he hasn't always done it in the past. He's always wanted the ball in his hands. Luka would have to be in a lot better shape to do that. We've never really even seen Luka do that. When Luka doesn't have the ball, he's kind of just standing on the perimeter, waiting for somebody to kick it back out to him so he can initiate offense. Same thing with LeBron. LeBron is 40. Maybe if this was a 27-year-old LeBron like in Miami, maybe he's running some backdoor cuts or whatever. But this is a LeBron James that's pretty much for the most part going to stand on the extended wing and kind of just wait to see how the play develops. Not to say that this can't work on the court. Maybe, obviously people like to figure things out. But these 3 players, particularly, they don't have the defense. They're not two-way players. They would need 2 exceptionally great defenders to make up for the lack of the defense that these 3 give you. And then you would have to have motivation from at least 2 of these players to run off-ball plays more so. But I really don't know if that'll happen just because of, the 3 players that these are.
It goes back to the argument. Do you want just the fit for a team that just fits together, or do you just want the overall talent that you believe that these guys are just that talented they can get us over no matter what is around them? But we've seen that fail more so than times that it's exceeded, right? I don't know the last time that we've really just seen a team thrown together that doesn't really fit, that has won something significant, right? More than a first-round series. But in my opinion, this might be a hot take, but to me, Luka Doncic is a top 3 player in the world, right? I don't think he needs all of this to win. I think, you get Kyrie and just throw some defenders out there.
Yeah.
And get an actual big man on this team. This team is going to be set to be a contender yet again, as they were right before the trade deadline last year. Luka's that special to me where you give him, he doesn't need LeBron to win a championship. You just give him Kyrie and just get some defenders and some team players that fit on that team, and I think they'll be in an okay spot. Draymond would even fit on that team, to be completely honest. Moving over to league expansion. Adam Silver, in a recent interview, he said that the NBA will turn to possible expansion after the media rights discussion this upcoming spring. What city would you most like to see have another team or have their first team as, Seattle, Las Vegas. Those are the most popular. But if there was one city you could say, I want this city to have a team, what would that be?
Oh, man, a city that I say needs a team. And like you said, the obvious answers, people go with are Seattle or Las Vegas. Las Vegas, of course, hosts the Summer League for the rookies and other free agents. And Seattle, they used to be the Supersonics. Those are probably the two that everybody will say. But, I mean, if I had to choose something a little bit different, some cities that come to mind are like St. Louis, Kansas City, even like Buffalo. These are, maybe they're not the craziest markets you think of, but they have loyal fans. And if the NBA wanted something to do, wanted like a loyal fan base, wanted to know that they were going to get a great startup. I mean, of course, Seattle probably, you're going to have a huge fan base in Seattle, but you can't go wrong with any of those other cities because they'll show up and support no matter what the sport is. So. Even Vegas, but Vegas I feel like is more so a city where you have to win to get that, that return, and especially in fan engagement and everything. Vegas, I don't think they'll stand for, losing for however many seasons before they finally come up.
It is interesting with Vegas because they have the money. So, like, over in the NHL, the Golden Aces, I believe, they're a new franchise. They were an expansion team that came over, or they were created, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. I think they're on the route to win their second Stanley Cup in the first 2 or 3 years of their franchise's existence.
Which is insane.
Right. So I believe that, Las Vegas has the money, and I know that James Harden is going to be the first person to be a member of a Las Vegas team. But Vancouver would be a cool spot to go, maybe if they want to expand over to Canada. Any chance we see a Mexican team? Maybe like the Mexico City Aztecs is what's been rumored for if they went down south.
I wouldn't rule anything outside the NBA just because it has grown globally. But I think if before Mexico, they would probably create another Canadian team.
Yeah.
Just because they, same thing with Seattle. They've had a team in Vancouver before. They know, that there is some type of return there. And I think if anything, leading with the expansion, or if there's going to be maybe multiple teams expanded in the next 15 or so years, I think they'll more so probably start off with the cities that have had the teams.
Right.
Like they took away the Seattle team, so what they're going to do, they're probably going to bring back the Supersonics first and move maybe the Pelicans or or Minnesota back out to the East or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving over to the NBA Finals, we've seen 2 games to this point. Last time we talked to you guys, we made our predictions, did about everything you could have possibly done as far as player rankings, positional matchups, deep dive into the series. We did all of that, but now we're 2 games in. Right, game 1, Denver pretty much had control for the majority of it. Jamal Murray, he had 26. Aaron Gordon got off to a crazy first quarter start. He had like 10 or 12 points in that first quarter, and he finished with 16. Jokic had a very chill 27, 14, and 10 triple-double, which is crazy to say, but it just seemed like he wasn't even going 100% the whole game, and they were still cruising as a team. Miami, they went small, and it showed. But I will say, Bam did have an amazing game, and there's something about this matchup, it seems like a Bam, where in these first 2 games, he's playing like with a chip on his shoulder. He's playing like he has something to prove, where I've never seen anybody debate Bam or Jokic, but maybe Bam just wants more respect in the NBA media. Jimmy Butler, biggest story of that game 1, he only had 13 points, and Caleb Martin was, I don't even know if he showed up for game 1. He has a total of 6 points throughout these first 2 games. He's been very non-existent after being arguably the Eastern Conference Finals MVP.
Yeah.
They did get good minutes in game 1 from Haywood Highsmith. He disappeared in game 2, but he had 18 in game 1 with some good defense. But after game 1, I want to say this series pretty much looked over. To me, it was like Denver, they cruised. It was like Miami's going to need a miracle or 4 straight 50-pointers from Jimmy Butler to have a chance. But, just thoughts after game 1. When you were watching game 1, what were your immediate thoughts after that?
Yeah, my initial thoughts were, if Bam is going to be your leading scorer for the Miami Heat, you lost the series. Jimmy, he didn't look aggressive whatsoever. I remember, I was sitting there watching. It was just at a certain point, Jimmy stopped, demanding the ball. He stopped taking matters to his own hands, and when he did, he didn't look that confident in them. And of course, obviously their shooters, Max Strus and Caleb Martin, they weren't doing anything at all.
Duncan Robinson?
Yeah, well, you don't even have to mention him. And like you said, it felt like the Nuggets were kind of just cruising. It felt like they were like, yeah, this is probably the easiest game by far we've had in the playoffs. I mean, they were getting any and everything, and it was to the point where, I'm sitting there, I'm looking, I'm like, Jokic is getting the ball at the free throw line, and it's like KCP or whoever is in that corner is wide open every time. Michael Porter Jr., I think he shot like 2 of 11 or something like that. But he probably should have made 5 more just for being that wide open.
Right.
And to me, it was just like, the Nuggets are cruising through this, and they don't even have everybody aboard. They got Aaron Gordon. They gave him some valuable points and minutes. But, Michael Porter Jr. is struggling. They got some like, they're not hitting on all cylinders, and here they are, blowing this Heat team out. So, after game 1, like you, I was like, oh, this is for sure a sweep. It's a snooze fest. I'm like, man, let's just get to the championship ceremony or whatever already.
Right, I was excited for the offseason. But, and then in game 2, Miami stormed out of the gates in the first quarter. They were up by, I want to say 10 plus points, right, early in that first quarter. But then Denver would go on a 40-14 run from about the 2-minute mark in the first quarter to the 5-minute mark in the second. They would go on a 40-14 run. At one point, they were up by 15, and ultimately they led at half. Both sides. I mean, the Heat finally got a made shot from Max Strus as he was 0 of 10 in game 1. He made four threes in the first half of that game 2. And Christian Braun also had some really good minutes for the Denver Nuggets, giving them a much-needed spark. But Miami, to start the second half, they would go 6 of 6 from the field before Denver could even make a shot. And I believe that was the turning point of the game for me. As the game was close throughout, and Jamal Murray almost made a crazy step-back shot to tie it up at the end. But, I mean, the Heat pulled this one out. Bam had another great offensive game. Jimmy did what he had to do at times, especially late in that game. But I believe the biggest story here was Gabe Vincent. I mean, he put up a team-high 23 points, and it just seems like if Jimmy's not the leading scorer, it's Gabe Vincent most of the time, especially when this team wins games. Of course, like I mentioned, Denver was up by a lot at one point. Miami now has 7 wins after trailing by 12 or more points this postseason. It's basically 2 every single round, so we're guaranteed another comeback win from Miami in the finals. But for Denver, they're now 0-4 when Jokic scores 40-plus this postseason, but they're 13-1 when he doesn't. Just quick thoughts on Game 2. Just where do you see this series going from now?
I think Miami definitely gets 1 in Miami. I'm not going to say 2, but I know they get 1 in Miami. I think they, we're probably going to speak on it a little bit later, but I think they found a little bit of a blueprint to kind of handle everything that the Nuggets have to offer. And I mean, if they can find that offensive consistency, if you don't have to go into the game wondering who your top scorer is going to be, then Miami pretty much has found a way to compete with this Nuggets team. Obviously, Jimmy knows he has to be better. He shot 7 of 19 or whatever it was in game 2. But if you can still get that contribution from Max Strus, from Duncan Robinson, from Gabe Vincent, from Bam, you're looking at you have the offense to compete, and that's if you didn't have the defense. But I think Miami has finally found something. So I believe that they split their home.
As selfish NBA fans, I want that to happen. I want this to be a Game 7. I want it to come down to the last shot where Jokic or Jimmy Butler has to step up and make a big shot. But going into the game tomorrow, Tyler Hero, there's a good chance he will actually suit up. I don't know how much he will play after breaking his shooting hand out of all hands. But he might be back. So that could be an extra spark for this Heat team to make the series even more interesting. But we're going to switch over here to our keys. I wanted you to think of some keys. What could Team A or Team B do going forward to really close out the series and win a championship? We're going to start here with Miami. They are the 8th seed. They are the underdog. They are going back home up or tied 1-1 as they've stolen home court. They say the series doesn't start until the road team wins the game, and that happened here. But Miami, what are your keys for them going forward in games 3, games 4, 5, 6, and 7 if it does go to those points?
So like I said before, Jimmy needs to step up. He needs to. And when I say step up, it's just, do what he did in the Boston series for those first 2 games. We haven't seen that same Jimmy that we saw through the whole playoff stretch for an amount of games. He's done it when he's needed to. Like you said, he hit, the corner 3.
Right.
He hit some of those mid-ranges when he needed to. But Jimmy needs to be aggressive from the get-go. He needs to set the tone for this Heat team because you're getting pretty much consistent offense from everybody else. Bam, Gabe, Vincent, everybody else. if you can get Jimmy involved in that, if Jimmy can get you 30 points, if Jimmy can average 30 points from this point forward, you have a good chance to compete in every single game that you're in, because Bam's been producing at a high level. So has Gabe Vincent. You're getting Duncan Robinson's coming alive. They're going back to Miami. Max Strus, and it's only a matter of time before Caleb Martin has a game where he at least has 15 points.
Right.
And my second key is make Jokic a scorer. I think you asked me this before the season start. How would I play the Nuggets? Would I let Jokic do what he does, or would I guard everybody else? And I said I'd probably guard everybody else, because it's easier to guard everybody else than it is to guard Jokic. If you let Jokic score, and if you guard everybody else is going to struggle. What do we see late down in that game 2 stretch? We saw there were times Jokic had the ball in the paint, somebody wide open in the corner, and he was shooting the shot. Why? Because Miami was guarding everybody on the Nuggets so tightly, and the Nuggets were having such a bad shooting night from everybody not named Nikola Jokic. He didn't trust that guy in the corner anymore to make that 3. He knew that if he shot that paint shot, it was an easy 2 points. If you can just keep Jokic in that mindset that, hey, I have to take the game into my own hands, then hey, you have a pretty good shot, because it's easier to guard one person than it is to guard 5.
Right, absolutely. I did ask you that before the series, and we were split. I was more so for the let the role players beat you. Take the best player and maybe in the world out of the game. Even take all clog the passing lanes, take all of his passing avenues, make Jokic irrelevant in this series, because he is the focal point of that offense. And now I think my answer's changed. I think it's more so just let Jokic. It's easier to stop one man, like you said, than 13. Right, so you stop the one man. It's going to be hard, because that is arguably the best player in the world. But if you can do that, the blueprint is out there. The Suns found that blueprint. Shout out to Monty Williams, and they were able to steal 2 games, due to the brilliance of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. But they were defensively able to find a way to stop this Nuggets team, which at times it seems like there's no way to stop them. But I agree with you. Make Jokic beat you. But I also want to add here for the Miami Heat that you need consistency from the Bam and the bench, right? From Bam in the starting lineup, you need him to continue to play at the level that he has, defensively and offensively. And I'm not asking Bam to drop 20 a night, but if you can give me 16 or 14 to 16 of just those jump hooks that he's doing, continue to crash the offensive glass, play that defense, make it tough on Jokic. That's really all you can ask for Bam in this series. And like you said, Jimmy needs to step up offensively, but then the bench too. We know Kyle Lowry, he's had some moments, but he hasn't had like that vintage performance yet, right? That could happen in the series. I'm not going to guarantee that, even though I'd like to see it, right? But Kyle Lowry, you'd like to see him step up a little bit. You'd like to see Tyler Hero maybe make an appearance and play some relevant minutes. Hayward Highsmith continue to bring that defense. They just need more consistency from this bench and Bam, right? And I think that if that can happen, you saw in games 1 and 2 when that is happening, this series could be more interesting than it looks on paper.
Yeah, and I will say one of the keys that I can't remember who it was. It might have been Steve Kerr on Draymond's podcast. I can't remember who. But one of the brilliance of Eric Spoelstra is Steve Kerr said that the thing that Eric Spoelstra said after game 1 is he said that Eric Spoelstra was looking at it as Jokic was the head of the snake going into game 1. He said that going into game 2, they said Jamal Murray was the head of the snake, which means they put Jimmy on him from the get-go, which means everybody else fell into line on defense, which made it harder on everybody else not named Jokic. And he said once you make Jamal Murray the head of the snake, now Jokic, who's usually a passive type of player, gets his when they come. Now he has to look to score more because his guys aren't as open or they aren't hitting shots. And that, to me, was a great takeaway from that game, too, because that's exactly what they did. They made it harder on everybody else, especially Jamal Murray, putting Jimmy on them, and starting Kevin Love, too, adding another big body so Aaron Gordon can't get going. So
yeah, Aaron Gordon can't put up a career high if he doesn't have Caleb Martin on him.
Yeah.
But moving over to Denver, where both of these coaches, I'm expecting a lot of adjustments to be had here in Game 3. But for Denver, my keys for them going forward, you had a great Game 1, right? Great postseason. They just had their first loss this entire postseason at home, right? At the Mile High. And then, they lost one in Game 2. You know what happens, right? Everybody has their day, basically is what I'm saying. But keep playing your brand of basketball. Keep running the offense through Jokic. Keep running the offense through Jamal Murray. Keep running that pick and roll. It is the best pick and roll in basketball for the last couple years, and especially this year, right? The whole world is getting to see it. But keep playing your brand. Keep offensively, defensively. You guys went on a 40-14 run, right? And still lost this game. I want to say that everything went right for the Heat in Game 2. It felt like, Denver, they got off to a rough start, but they played almost perfect the rest of the way, and they still barely lost, right? So my point is, you're right there, both of these games. In game 1, you won. Game 2, you lost at the end of the game when you almost came back. Just keep playing your brand of basketball. Keep playing at your own pace, and you're going to have no problems winning the series. And also, Michael Porter Jr. needs to be better. I mean, in game 1, Jokic saw the stats of Michael Porter, and he was like, man, I thought he did better than that. I thought he had more points than that. In game 2, I mean, he was about as existent as Caleb Martin, which is not there, right? Michael Porter Jr., we know the talent that he is. We raved about him before the series. I thought he was going to be the X factor, for this Denver offense, and right now he hasn't been. So if he can step up, just give him 12 to 15 points a night, it's going to blow the series open.
He needs to quit shooting those step-back threes and just shoot it straight up. But my keys for the Nuggets going forward was, the first key I had is you need to run off-ball plays. You need to run a few more, because when you're running that pick-and-roll action, you want to run a secondary action on the backside or a secondary action on your strong side corner or whoever that is. Because the way the Heat are playing it is they are heavily guarding Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, and if you just have KCP sitting in the corner or Michael Porter Jr. sitting in the corner waiting for the pass to catch and shoot, it's going to be guarded. If you can run some other actions with that pick and roll, you're making it even more deadly. Now you're giving Jamal Murray or Nikola Jokic even more passing opportunities or even more scoring opportunities, and that will be a great look. That will open up the offense a lot more, because even if Nikola Jokic does have to continue scoring, there are more threats now. There are more actions you have to be aware of. You're keeping the defense honest. And my second key for them was, like you said, they need to continue that Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray pick and roll, because that ties into like what I was just talking about. If you can keep both of those guys in the pick and roll, running some other options for everybody else, keeping all 5 players engaged on offense, you have keys to succeed on offense. And I don't even have to mention their defense was pretty good the other night, especially in that 40-14 run. But continue running that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic pick and roll, because in that fourth quarter, for the last 2.5 minutes, minute and a half, Jamal Murray, he was heating up, hitting some big shots, including that almost step back that could have been. And that all came from those pick and roll looks. So those are my keys for Denver.
Absolutely. Just very quick, sticking with Denver for the rest of the series?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, same here. But moving over, it seems like the last 2 weeks of this podcast has strictly been Denver or Miami, because we kind of, when Miami was up 3-0, we were already previewing the finals. So just to take a step back, just to still talk about basketball, still talk about something relevant in the world of sports, but not necessarily always the same thing, which is the finals right now. I found an article, right? It is by the Bleacher Report staff. That is the author. So shout out to all of them over there. But it's one ambitious free agent target for each and every team this upcoming offseason. I'm just going to run through. I'm going to read these names off. Stop me if you want to talk about a player. I'll do the same. But yeah, pretty self-explanatory. We're going to start here in the Eastern Conference. Then we'll move over to the West as Atlanta. They have taken Kevin Love. Boston signing Lonnie Walker, a nice little punch off their bench. And Brooklyn signs George Niang.
This one is kind of crazy to me, because I don't. Maybe you could tell me, but I'm not sure what value is he going to bring to this Nets team as is. Like what is he actually going to bring, other than you're just wasting money signing and putting on your roster?
No, absolutely. I'll read what they have here, but I'm assuming it's just cap situation, because they're saying that with the $5 million taxpayer mid-level exception, they're going to be able to do that. That's going to be their top spending tool. So I'm assuming they're in the cap hold, or they're in a cap hole to the point where the best thing they can do is bring in a role player. That's with the position that they're in, I mean no big star is going to really go to Brooklyn this offseason anyway. So why not just bring in a Georges Niang? He could play some valuable minutes off the bench, maybe bring some shooting.
Shoot 39% from the field and 38% from three. I mean,
absolutely. Moving over, we have Kristaps Porzingis going to the Charlotte Hornets, which is something that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
This is. I'm going to talk about this later, because they also have the Wizards picking up another person. But the Wizards, they're in a tough spot, and I believe personally they need to blow it up. A sign and trade with Kristaps Porzingis, he's their biggest free agent this offseason. I believe that's going to be a great start to your rebuild. A team that could afford bringing in Kristaps in a sign and trade, whether if it's with assets or with the money to pay Kristaps that he would want. it's going to be the Charlotte Hornets. And to me, a possible lineup of LaMelo Ball. You bring in Scoot Henderson out the draft. Gordon Hayward, we'll throw him at the 3. Kristaps Porzingis and Nick Richards, I believe that is it's a play-in roster next year. Whether if it's I'll put it this way. I just think the spacing ability that Kristaps brings for LaMelo and Scoot is going to do wonders for this entire offense. Just at the pick and pop, the pick and roll with LaMelo, being the fantastic player LaMelo is, or with Scoot. Scoot can play the pick and roll too, and I believe Scoot right now, his outside shot is not exactly where it's going to be in 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. He's more so, he's a slasher as of right now, more so than a shooter. Having Kristaps step out and provide that spacing, he can still have Nick Richards in the dunker spot. Scoot Henderson, I think, is just going to do a lot for the development of Scoot and LaMelo.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Getting Scoot, getting Kristaps, and then getting Scoot probably should be their top priority, because then when you trade for somebody like Kristaps, or sign and trade him, whatever you want to call it, you're allowing yourself to do something that you might not have done before. So maybe if they don't get Kristaps, they're saying, okay, maybe we should go get Brandon Miller. I think Scoot is probably better than Brandon Miller, but they're probably like, okay, well, the fit is a little bit better. But if you go get Kristaps, like you said, Kristaps will be able to step out, hit that deep 3, because Scoot will be able to run that pick and roll and use the slasher spot. But Scoot can also play make too. Don't get it twisted. He's not like some one-dimensional slasher. He can play make and play defense. He just doesn't have the 3-point shot that you may be looking for right now. But if you get Kristaps, that more than makes up for it, because you have a 7-3 guy who can tack the paint, or he can step out and hit the 3, and that'll be phenomenal for a young Hornets team who kind of just needs vets and winners on their team.
Right. I think just making the playoffs at this point is going to be better than just keep trying and bringing in younger talent that's not going to necessarily get you to that point.
Right.
But also, Scoot, he's also a bodybuilder. Yeah. He needs to give some muscle to Kristaps this season, and then they'd really be dangerous. But Chicago, they get Gabe Vincent replacing Lonzo, as his future is up in the air. And the Cavs, we get Harrison Barnes. We talked about it last week, but Harrison Barnes is another 3 that he can play the 3 or the 4 and be better than Isaac Okoro.
Yeah, he can be better than about 8 guys on our roster.
We're going to start here, Miami, the team that is the reigning Eastern Conference champs. They're going to get Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a guy who's going to get another reset in his career, and he's going to a place where it seems like when all else fails, you go to Miami, and they can help develop you. But Detroit is going to get Cam Johnson.
I like this Detroit Cam Johnson to Detroit, because whether the Pistons draft Dave Thompson to win, or they get Jarace Walker, or whoever it may be in the draft, this will help out exponentially, because you'll have a lineup of running Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Cam Johnson, Jarace Walker, or in Jalen Duren, or you could even just slide Cam Johnson to a stretch 4 position and having a Thompson twin at the 3, or I'm sure Cade can slide to the 3 and just play on ball more so, like a point forward.
Right.
You have a lot of versatility if you get Cam Johnson, but you're also bringing leadership, a veteran he's been to the finals. He's won games. This is somebody who took a huge step up in his play this past season, and I believe if he goes to Detroit, maybe it's in a season or 2, he could be an all-star thanks to Cade Cunningham and his progression. I think you have a potential all-star in Cam Johnson, and you're also playing with one of the young and upcoming promising point guards in Cade Cunningham, as well as a young roster with just a lot of good talent, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, right, and whoever you get out of this draft. It's a top 5 pick. You're going to be set. I think Cam Johnson brings them good value and good experience that helps them maybe even fight for a play-in spot this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think Detroit's in a beautiful spot. Even though they fell to 5, I can only imagine if they had the number 1 pick. You could still bring in Cam Johnson with Victor Wembanyama.
Exactly.
They would be in an even better spot there. But moving over.
Oh, and not to mention Detroit. Monty Williams is the head coach. Cam Johnson goes back to Monty
what he
Williams.
knows.
Yeah, exactly.
He is 27, but this is going to be his first big payday, getting an absurd $25 million a year for Cam Johnson. But maybe he can develop again under Monty Williams. Indiana, they're going to get Draymond Green, and we're split on this one. I'll start here. I'll give you the positives behind why I actually kind of like Draymond going to Indiana. Now, I will say this, Draymond, I see if there's any chance, right, he leaves Golden State, it's going to be to join LeBron James, wherever that is. But let's say LeBron doesn't want him and Golden State wants him out of the door. That's very possible. Or if Draymond just gets money hungry, it's very possible a team like Indiana, a smaller market, would be desperate and they would give the money to a Draymond Green. I believe a lineup, I'll start here. With Draymond, just with his championship experience, just with his overall career experience, it would do wonders for Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Jalen Smith. I don't want to say Buddy Hield because he's 38. But I think just overall, Ben Mathurin, it's another guy. I think Draymond just coming into a younger team like this would do wonders just for experience, knowledge. We see all the time vets talk about how their veterans, right, when they came into the league, made them the players that they were. And right now we don't have a lot of veteranship in the NBA. You put Draymond in a team like that where you have a lineup of, let's say, Tyrese Halliburton, Ben Mathurin. Let's say you bring in a Cam Whitmore right in the draft here. Then you have Draymond Green, Miles Turner. You can let Jalen Smith come off the bench, which sure that hinders him as far as playing minutes. But it's still, I believe Jalen Smith's only going to develop under Draymond Green with his championship DNA and just the overall advice.
Yeah, I say this is a negative because we've been saying for years, if Draymond is on another team, another coach, whatever the case may be, and it's not for LeBron, and not taking anything away from Rick Carlisle, but where has he been since 2011 Dallas run? But
Western Conference Finals?
Well, I don't remember, but Draymond, I think he's at a point in his career where he'll go somewhere like Indiana and he'll try to treat it like Golden State. And I think at a certain point in time, the league kind of just outgrows you. And not his play style or anything. I think it just outgrows his personality. I don't think a new team, especially a younger one that has guys, that are trying to develop, I don't think they'll put up for Draymond going home early to do his podcast after getting ejected. I don't think they'll, have it to where, he's taunting the crowds and everything, making the Pacers public enemy number one because, like you said, at the same time, they're all trying to develop. And yes, I think Draymond can help with that veteran presence in the locker room. But as far as you getting out in the court and doing anything, sometimes he's more so of a negative as well. The system in Indiana isn't the same as playing with two of the greatest shooters of all time in Golden State or, playing with Jordan Poole, who has his great moments out there. Yes, Tyrese Halliburton can he can shoot really good, but he's not Steph Curry. Ben Mathurin, right. There's no Klay Thompson, neither is Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield is a great shooter in his own right, but I think at this point in his career, I wouldn't overspend. I wouldn't go out and get Draymond unless I was, say I was getting like a Draymond and Klay Thompson in some type of trade or whatever. I'm not going to do that unless I see clear as day here. I'm going to have him for half a season, trade him at the deadline, go get something back in return. And Draymond is at a point in his career where, unless you're a contending team, unless you're like Miami or, some team like that needs a backbone, I don't think that a team in the Indiana type of market is going to go out to get him. And it's not, had Indiana made the playoffs or whatever this season, I'd say, okay, Draymond comes in and helps them get that playoff experience, helps them go deeper in the playoffs. They didn't even make the play-in. So, I'm not sure. I think at this point in his career as well, Draymond isn't so interested in joining a team that isn't even in a play-in, race. I think, there are a few positives, but I think the way that the negatives fall, they're just in places in a higher priority than the positives.
Yeah, I will say just a couple quick notes here. Buddy Hield on his best day is not Klay on his worst day.
Oh yeah.
Even a Klay after 2 knee injuries, I'm taking to start my franchise over Buddy Hield.
Right.
So I'll get that out the way, right? And there is no Steph Curry in Indiana. There never has been a Steph Curry in Indiana.
Larry Bird.
Right. I think for this move, I will say that I wouldn't pay him 4 years. I would do a 2 years 50. If that's possible, I would do a 2 years 50. Maybe a 1-1, have a player option at the end to suit Draymond there. But it's just there is going to be no more chemistry. He's not going to have that elite chemistry with Steph and Klay. But I just think with Rick Carlisle maybe coming here, maybe he's going to be more of in a win now mode. And I believe Draymond would really excel that rebuild timeline. But moving over here, Milwaukee, they get TJ Warren, bringing them a punch off the bench. The Knicks get Seth Curry, some much needed 3-point shooting. And Orlando, they get Fred VanVleet.
As crazy as it sounds, I don't know if I really like a Fred VanVleet
I hate it.
To
be honest
Orlando. With you. I feel like it just hinders everything around him. I'm not taking anything away from Freddie V, but I don't like that move.
Yeah, absolutely. They're gonna have to pay him a lot of money. First off, Fred VanVleet is at the point where he's older. He was an older guy before he really hit stardom. He's going to want his money. So he's going to have to get 4 years, $100+ million from Orlando, where at that point, I'd rather just let Jalen Suggs develop. Or keep Markelle
Fultz,
bring him back
Cole
for a year.
Anthony.
Right. I think they're just stacked at that position, especially if they're in a position right now to bring in one of the Thompson twins.
Yeah.
So it's like I'd rather just stay where I'm at, draft, and decide on Markelle and Cole Anthony and even Jalen Suggs at that point if one of the Thompson twins is the real deal.
Exactly.
But Dante DiVincenzo or Trey Lyles is this article. They have going to Philadelphia, bringing them some more depth off the bench. D'Angelo Russell going to Toronto to replace Fred VanVleet. It's kind of an even kill there.
Yeah.
Washington does get Kyrie Irving. And I will say this, that I absolutely hate this. But I understand. I know the Wizards, they're like the Pacers. They love purgatory. They love to just be okay and bring enough money in to suit their fans and their franchise and their owners. But it's time. To me, it's time. It's the perfect time to blow this thing up in Washington. I talked about it earlier with Chris Stapps. And now, I'll dive even deeper into it. I believe if you trade Bradley Beal, right? If you trade Bradley Beal for multiple 2 or 3 first-round picks, you can sign and trade Kuzma and Kristaps Porzingis, bringing in even more draft capital or even some young talent. You're still gonna have pieces like Denny Abdia. You're still gonna have pieces like Daniel Gafford, Corey Kispert, and the number 8 pick, which that's nothing to write home about. But those are good, solid pieces that you can pair around a draft pick, a younger guy that you bring in that could possibly change your franchise. And that's not including, or like I mentioned, you're going to get all those pieces back from trading those 3 fringe all-stars in Bradley Beal, Kyle Kuzma, and Kristaps Porzingis. I will say, on one hand, the idea of Kyrie in Washington is somewhat intriguing. When you have Kyrie, Bradley Beal, you can throw Kuzma at the 3, Kristaps, and Daniel Gafford. I think that is a solid 6 to 8 seed in the Eastern Conference, maybe just a play-in team. Not to mention you'd have Denny and Corey Kispert off the bench with the number 8 pick. I think on the surface level, I see why they would have Kyrie going to a team like the Wizards, but I think this Wizards team just needs a reset, and this is the best time to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. Even if they do, even with that lineup just mentioned, I think, obviously Luka is probably better than Bradley Beal and Kristaps combined.
Yes.
And they couldn't get it done. So they couldn't even, they were in the playoffs and fell out of that contention. You're probably going to get about 41 games out of Kristaps. You're probably going to get 35 out of Brad Beal. And then that leaves you with, Kyrie.
If he doesn't get suspended.
Yeah, exactly. And then that leaves you with Kyrie, like an Ish Smith, Kyle Kuzma, Daniel Gafford.
Monty Morris.
And what's that other guy? It's something Anthony Gill.
Right.
So, now you're out there running with a G League unit, except for Kyrie and Kuz. So, I agree with you. The Wizards are kind of like Portland. They need to trade their star. If they can get another draft pick for them, good. But if not, just trade them for some younger pieces, like you said. Fully commit to the tank next year. Go get that. I can't remember his name. Matthias.
Yeah, he's from France, right? You said?
I don't think he's from France. He's from somewhere, but he's a 6'10" point guard.
Right.
He's already number 1 in his class.
Right.
Just go tank and go get him. Just start over. I can't remember the last time. The Wizards haven't been relevant since John
2017.
Since before John Wall fell down the stairs. Wizards just need to, the Wizards just need to, like you said, restart.
Moving over to the Western Conference, Dallas, they have getting Dylan Brooks, giving that guy a reset, maybe brings that much needed defense that they need over there in Dallas. Denver, they bring back Bruce Brown on his player option. That's the best case scenario, as the article says that they think Bruce Brown would get more money than what his player option is now, but they're kind of hoping, hey, we want a championship, stick with what's new. We want to be able to afford you if you left in free agency. Golden State, they bring in Torrey Craig, just another Otto Porter type player that they bring in to play 3-and-D, right? Moving over to Houston. Houston brings back James Harden on his player option, though. They say that, I have him here slated for a 4-year, $210 million deal, which I think he'll most likely get. But they're saying best case scenario for the Rockets is to get him to just get a sign and trade, basically.
Yeah, I've been a heavy criticizer of this move since it's been brought up before on the podcast, and I'm here again to hate. I don't I don't see the vision on it. If this was something like where they somehow got another star, if Jalen Green was even on Cade Cunningham's level, or if Jalen Green was just 2 to 3 levels above where he is, maybe I could see it, because now you're saying, okay, you have James Harden, Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, he showed exponential growth in his play this past season. Put KPJ off the bench, and maybe you have a slight play-in team. But I mean, think about the teams that didn't make the playoffs this year or play-in teams. The Lakers and Warriors were the play-in winners. I can't even remember who the play-in losers. I'm sorry, the Minnesota was the play-in winner. I can't even remember who the losers were.
Regardless,
I mean,
I'll think about it.
Yeah, regardless, Houston isn't going to beat Dallas, who didn't even make the play-in. They're not going to beat. I don't think they'll beat Portland with Dame and whoever they decide to get, or if they whatever that is. I can't think.
It was the Pelicans and one other team.
They're not beating the Pelicans. OKC, they're not beating OKC.
OKC, that's
they're not beating half of these teams that just made the play-in, even with James Harden. They probably need to go get a secondary star, but if you're paying 4 years, $210 million to James Harden, you're not going to be able to do that unless you're saying, hey, Jalen Green, we're not going to give you the money you want when it's your turn to get paid. It just doesn't make sense. He is 32, something like that.
Right.
Obviously he wants one last big payday, but for Houston, you haven't even shown any growth over these past few seasons. You haven't shown anything that's made it seem like, hey, we won 18 games, we won 22, we just won 26. Hey, you've won like 18, and 17.
Right.
So I just don't get this move right here.
I mean, I'll start this by saying that Houston is not known to do this. What's the biggest free agency move they've ever made? Clyde Drexler?
Dwight Howard?
Dwight Howard might have been. I was just saying, like, signing-wise. I know Clyde came over late, but that was late in his career when he was way past his prime. It could have been Dwight Howard. I think he was signed to the Houston Rockets, or was he moved for, like, Chandler Parsons? And regardless.
Did Chris Paul get traded to?
Yes, he was traded. He was traded to him. But, to be honest, this move, like I said, like you said, we've been hating on it all offseason, but it's growing on me in all honesty, strictly just because Ime is the coach, and it's not Mike D'Antoni this time. Also, it's just a nostalgic reason for me, because when you think of James Harden, you think Houston Rockets. When you think Houston Rockets, you think of James Harden. I just think that if he can finish his career there, even if he's lost a step, I'd be happy to finish. I'd be happy to see him just finish his career where most people know him from. But as a fan with common sense, the backcourt of Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green, as we saw for the last 2 years, it doesn't work. Both of these guys in my mind are both elite six men, or I'll say Jalen Green's a step up of a Kevin Porter Jr. as far as bench pieces. But you bring in a James Harden, right? He's going to be the starting point guard of this team. He's going to facilitate. He's going to help getting these younger guys in their spots, which Jabari Smith is a guy that we've talked about. He struggles, as at least right now, to create his own shot. I believe James Harden can bring in and open up the game for Sengun or Jabari Smith. And like I said, he's lost a step, but still he's a great facilitator. You still would have Jalen Green at the 2, bringing, it'd be a very similar backcourt to the one in Philly with Tyrese Maxey. You throw in a 3-and-D wing at the 3. Probably PJ Tucker. He'd find his way over to Houston. Right. I mean, you could just throw any 3-and-D wing there at the 3. You still have Jabari Smith and Sengun in the front court. I believe it could be a very interesting team. It would take a lot of time to develop. You'd have Kevin Porter off the bench. But there's been rumors. There's been rumors that if things do blow up in Boston, Houston would, no doubt, I think, to me, they have the assets to make something happen. They have the assets to go out there and get a Jaylen Brown, around a package of Jalen Green, their top 5 pick, and other draft capital. I think they can make something happen where they have a lineup of James Harden, Jaylen Brown, you throw in a 3-and-D wing, Jabari Smith, Sengun. Not to mention, Boston probably doesn't even want Kevin Porter Jr. So you still have Kevin Porter Jr. coming off of the bench. I think they could be a very solid team. Do I think they're championship contenders? Not even close. Right? I think the Cavs, if you take Donovan Mitchell off of them, are going to be a better team than this Rockets team at that point. But I think it'd make it very interesting having James Harden, Jaylen Brown, Jabari Smith, who could take a step up, and Sengun. But that's living in a perfect world.
Yeah.
Moving over here to the Clippers. They would get Dennis Schroeder. The Lakers would get Gary Trent. I would love to see Gary Trent there in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Memphis, they would get Chris Middleton. We'll come back to that in just a second. But Minnesota gets Max Strus, and the Pelicans get Brook Lopez. On surface level, I love that move at first, saying that he was top 3 in depoy. But how big of an upgrade is that over like a Jonas Valanciunas, who does the same thing, just a little bit worse defensively?
Yeah, I think that defense is a little bit a little bit better than Valanciunas might be all the Pelicans need. He's hitting threes probably at a better clip than Valanciunas, even though Valanciunas did start, what was it, last year, insanely. Yes. Yeah. You probably could just count on Brook Lopez for a little bit more. And he's a champion. Everybody values the championship pedigree of some players. And I'm sure, if we were able to see Zion on the court with him, we definitely see the benefits of having him over Valanciunas. But only Pelicans fans will only know, for true. I'm not sitting here watching the Pelicans game on a Tuesday night when they're playing like San Antonio.
No, right.
So
moving over to the Chris Middleton move that we just talked about. This would have to be on his player option, so it would have to be a Chris Middleton doing otherworldly stuff, other character. He's going to have to act out of character, is basically what I'm getting at as I'm struggling with my words today. But Chris Middleton, he would have to ask for a trade. He would have to get traded to Memphis for the right pieces. And that's why I think you can bet your house, you can bet your kids, you can bet your car. This is not going to happen. Chris Middleton's going to be a Milwaukee Buck next season. But if we're living in the fictional world, let's live in the fictional world, right? The Grizzlies, they let Dylan Brooks go, right? So they're going to need a temporary fill-in at the 3, especially because you're going to have to pay some guys coming up here. But why not go out there? Why not go out there in a fictional world, get Chris Middleton, bring him in. He's going to play lead defense, shoot the 3 at a high clip. Sometimes he can even take the game over, right, and create his own shot. I think it would be a dream pickup for the Grizzlies, especially because Ja might be suspended for half the year or maybe even the full year.
Yeah, Chris Middleton, if this was the same Chris Middleton from 2 years ago, I'd say absolutely. But, I don't even think, I think we were waiting for him to come back into form last season, and it just never really happened. Mm-hmm. He had flashes, maybe with a full offseason,
I think a lineup of like Tyus Jones, is it? Tyus Jones? Yeah. So Tyus Jones, you would have Desmond Bane, Chris Middleton, Jaren Jackson, and Steven Adams. The defense would be insane.
Yeah, it would. I'm not taking anything away from the defense, but as far as the go-to scorer, I'm not sure,
right.
Maybe he's a little bit too streaky for that now. But, maybe that tertiary score from Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. to Chris Middleton, I think, obviously they'll still be a competitive-ish team, so...
Yeah, absolutely. Oklahoma City Thunder, they would get P.J. Washington. He's a restricted free agent, so OKC would have to throw at least a decent amount of money to get P.J. away from Charlotte, or maybe not. Maybe not. But the Phoenix, they would get Josh Richardson to bring in some defense there alongside their stars. Naz Reid will go to Portland. Naz Reid is a guy that's, as Cavs fans, we want, but in this case, he goes to Portland, gives them a big.
Yeah, kind of a weird move, considering Dame isn't probably going to improve. But
absolutely, the Spurs would get Austin Reeves. The Spurs would get he's a restricted free agent, so they would have to pay him at least $101 million, according to reports, because the Lakers, they said they will match him up to $100 million. So I mean, I don't know how strict that line is, but the Lakers are saying around $100 million is what they'll pay for Austin Reeves. So I mean, what if the Spurs go out there average, give them 110? It's like at that point, how lenient is that line for the Lakers? Kyle Kuzma would go to the Jazz. I think that'd be a very interesting fit there. But I don't know. He has some pigment in his skin, and I don't know how the Jazz fans would fare.
Oh yeah, no.
But the last move we want to talk about is Jeremy Grant going to the Sacramento Kings. I'll let you take this one over. This was one that you really wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I think Jeremy Grant going to the Kings would be a very underrated pickup, and I think this moves that needle from playoff contenders to maybe even championship contenders. Yeah. Jeremy Grant, he is that good. Jeremy Grant is somebody who, he goes under the radar, but this is a 20-point-per-game scorer. I think, 2 years ago during a washed away Cavs and Pistons game at the end of the season. Pistons didn't have anything to play for. I believe it was Jeremy Grant who dropped 40 on us. They lost, but he dropped 40 on us.
Yeah, he was.
Jeremy Grant, he is that type of player. He can do that type of scoring. He isn't the star. He isn't the secondary star that Damian Lillard needs. But if he goes to Sacramento, can play alongside De'Aaron Fox, who's a great facilitator. Sabonis, who's a great passing big. You add somebody who can play next to even Keegan Murray, and everybody else on that team. They re-signed Malik Monk. They have a lot of different options, but Jeremy Grant, I believe he fits in that Sacramento, fits that Sacramento mold great. He can create his own shot as well. He can play the 3 or the 4. He can score, and I just believe that Sacramento getting him will be a huge steal and move the trajectory of their needle.
Right.
Maybe next season if they don't get them, they fall back into where they are. Maybe they're instead of a 2 seed or a 2 or 3 seed, maybe they're a they're a 6 or 7 seed. Or
Right.
if they get Jeremy Grant, I believe he can keep them where they were and help them elevate their games as well, especially playing under Mike Brown.
Yeah, so in this article, I'm reading on it just because I was wondering how they can make this big of a contract work, because you have De'Aaron Fox, you have Domantas Sabonis, as well as some other pieces. They said that they would have to re-announce the rights, Sacramento we're talking, of a couple of three rotational pieces, but the main guy being Harrison Barnes, which he makes upwards of $20 million. So that would give them about 30-ish million, which, depending on who you ask, that might not be enough to bring in Jeremy Grant on a 4-year deal.
Right.
30 million a year. But then they would also, they're saying here, it's more like a sign-and trade would happen and then an extension because he's on the roster. They would also have to take in a Rashawn Holmes, who's making about $25 million over the next 2 years. So, I mean,
crazy for Rashawn Holmes.
At the time, I mean, 2 years ago, I want to say Rashawn Holmes was like, everyone was like, man, we need him on our team. Maybe that's the next Nas Reed. Moving over to just a quick summary, as we went through all 30 teams. We talked about some that we liked, disliked, but these are the ones that we went more into depth on. As again, I want Washington to blow it up is basically what you can get from me in this episode. But any last thoughts before we get out of here?
This was fun, kind of seeing where projected where free agents go. I'm sure this will look completely different come to actual free agency. But looking at these hypotheticals, what ifs, it's fun looking at what teams. I really like that Cam Johnson and that Jeremy Grant. Those are underrated moves that will probably make a world of difference come the regular season. And those are the moves we'd love to see. So
absolutely. I mean, obviously, when it gets to a certain point, we're going to have our own free agency predictions. We're going to go through that here in the offseason. But as of right now, just looking at these articles, again, it's something different, and it's not strictly NBA Finals, which it seems like that's the only thing we've talked about for 2 weeks. But we're on the road to 300 subs on the channel. As again, it's crazy that we've gotten to this point. Thank you for all the support. But we're right there. We're fingertips away. We're about 40 or so away. So tell a friend to tell a friend. If you enjoy the podcast, obviously you're 51 minutes into us in this episode. You enjoy us at least a little bit. I guarantee one of your best friends will as well. So just keep supporting the channel. Drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until Thursday, which we're not sure yet, but hopefully we don't have a lopsided series at that point or no injuries. Or hopefully Tyler Hero can come back, drop 50. But that's going to do it. We'll see you guys Thursday. Peace, love, and hugs. We're out.